Nagawa mo na ba yung research para sa assignment?
Oo, sa YouTube.
The kinematics of radiation.
According to quantum physics,
The gamma rays from them could sterilize.
Tutok na tutok ka dyan ah. Baka lumuha yung mga mata mo. Ano ba yan? Baka bumalok-balok mo tumukha ka ganyan. Hoy! Baka magbuhol-buhol na yung daliri mo, kaka-cellphone. Kakain na!
Unli alert! Unli alert! Introducing Smart's most unli. Sa sobrang unli ng unli giga video, watch all you want on video apps. Sa sobrang unli ng unli giga stories, post all you can on social media apps. Kakayanin mo ba?
saranghe.
Ma, buong araw ko na po nanonood dyan Baka kainin ka na ng sofa.
Unli alert! Unli alert! Smart Unli Giga Video and Smart Unli Giga Stories. Unli responsibly.
Ang gusto ko yung easy. Kaya good thing ang Smart may GigaPay sa GigaLife app. It's the smarter way to pay dahil sa GigaPay with PayMaya, carry magbayad sa GigaLife app. Buy load, subscribe to promos, and be rewarded for it. Achieving your passions just got easier with a simpler and smarter way to pay. GigaPay with PayMaya. Only on the GigaLife app. How do I know this? Simple. Smart ako. Download the GigaLife app now.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of BusinessWorld Insights. Today's topic, the emerging esports and gaming industries of the Philippines. In this session, presented in partnership with Smart Communications, we'll be diving into the exciting developments around one of the nation's fastest growing sectors, gaming. My name is Tiago Arnaiz. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Startup Venture Builder Day 3 Innovations, and I'll be your moderator today. Latest data from Statista shows online gaming flourishing in the Philippines, with low-cost smartphones and mobile internet packages driving exponential growth over the coming years. By 2025, Philippine mobile gaming is forecasted to bring in revenues of up to $1.45 billion, with over 38.6 million users. Today, that growth is most apparent in the thriving community of video game streamers and esports athletes, the development of esports college degrees, as well as the establishment of a collegiate center for esports. Joining us today are key figures leading this esports and gaming revolution, not only in the Philippines, but across Southeast Asia. We'll be hearing from each of our speakers in turn before diving into a free-flowing Q&A. So before I introduce them, a quick reminder that we'll be selecting audience questions for our Q&A. So be sure to jot down those questions as we hear from our panelists. Now, without further ado, allow me to introduce our speakers for today's session. First up, we have Lloyd R. Manoloto, the first Vice President and Head of Corporate Marketing and Strategy at Smart Communications. Lloyd has over 20 years of experience as a marketing professional, including stints in FMCGs and broadcast media, as well as a combined 16 years in the telco and broadband industry at Smart. Today, he proudly continues his childhood passion for video games as a champion for esports. Lloyd, thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me to this forum. I'm allowed to share my screen, right?
Absolutely.
Hang on. All right. Good morning. Thank you for inviting me to this forum, Thiago. So as many gamers know, Smart has been a big believer in esports. And as far as back as 2013, we actually had a niche brand because at that time, gaming was still a niche activity, right? It was not yet mainstream. But fast forward to 2021, we see large crowds, large prize monies, and this is a tantamount to the effect of esports now to our culture, right? It's now mainstream. It's part of Filipino culture. And if back then it was still niche, now I think the numbers, there are about 45 million active gamers now. And we are seeing steady increases year on year for games. At least double digit for the past 4 years, right? And as you mentioned, the growth factors are essentially accessibility of mobile games via smartphones and a faster internet, especially in mobile. So what we see today, about 63% of the online population watch gaming content, about a third watch esports, which tells you the massive impact of sports now, right? And this does not even include the people who purchase in-game items. Now, I think in the Philippines, the most popular game is probably Mobile Legends Bang Bang. And I think the monthly active users are over 20 million. And I think on any given day, there are at least 8 to 10 million daily active users for this particular game. And as mentioned, this is a mobile game, and therefore, it's one of the biggest activities being done on the network of Smart. So, what's the role of Smart in this in this culture, right? Number one, we provide a network and invest in the infrastructure to satisfy the players in terms of performance via our fastest network. We've developed game packs or mobile promos which are designed specifically for gamers. They're simple, they're easy to use, and they're affordable. We have allowed our network to be an avenue for payments. We create simple ways to purchase in-game items through DCB and with PayMaya, opening up as an e-wallet. We've worked with content creators. We partner with all the key online for gaming and esports because it's not just people playing games, it's also content, and there's a whole ecosystem around this, leveraging on the network. Importantly, we are also in esports, and we support tournaments from the grassroots programs all the way to the big professional tournaments. And because we are in these tournaments, we've also have our esports teams, and these are managed professional teams. In fact, the manager for our esports teams is also the manager for our real games, like for example basketball, right? So that's kind of level professionalism that we expect from our esports teams. And I go back to the network because this is what underpins our investment in esports. We believe that the network is the core to this because the network allows people to connect to their games and play with other people, right? And so far, we've really invested in providing the fastest network. And because we know this is the growth is actually being driven by mobile games, we're also investing in the future by providing the fastest 5G in the Philippines. Why do we see 5G as I think the next level technology to help gamers? Is that 5G gives you near fiber-like speeds in terms of download speeds and latency. It's comparable to fiber, and this is important because the gamers are probably the most demanding consumer segment, right? And they're also the most influential. Sino tinatanong ng mga magulang pag may problema sa internet? Yung gamers pamilya, right? And that's why it's so important for us to really be at the forefront in technology for gamers and 5G in particular. And as I mentioned earlier, we've been supporting esports from all levels. And the way we look at esports is similar to how we look at sports. It's you have levels from grassroots and levels up to the professional levels. And in between, you have the scholastic and other levels, right? And we need to find the players, and they emerge essentially by competing in tournaments, starting at the grassroots levels up to the pro levels. And in Smart, we're proud to actually push esports because even our regional sales teams are empowered to have their own tournaments, right? So wala nang pa-bingo. It's all Mobile Legends na. And we've been supporting major tournaments si Club Saya, one of our biggest, has one of the biggest prize pools. And we've actually filled up whole arenas and malls to watch the events. And beyond this, we've also started to craft specialist tournaments wherein we have an all-female league, Liga Aldarna. And for the longest time, we've been partners with Moonton, with Mobile Legends. Since 2016, we've been the sponsor of the Mobile Legends Professional League. And quite recently, with Ren here, we've supported the nationals. And this is the first, I would say, the first franchise professional league. And PLE Smart was instrumental in supporting this. Quite recently, we've also been supporting, because we are involved with FIBA, because of Gilas, we've also supported the FIBA NBA 2K partner, which is quite interesting. Natuwa sila parang, pati sa games pwede mag 5-on-5 basketball na. And as I mentioned, the way we look at sports and esports are the same. Esports is no different from sports. We create heroes. We create the players, and the values of sports are also inherent in esports, of teamwork, of camaraderie, of teamwork, and sportsmanship, right? And the way we've supported sports is the same way we've supported esports, and by providing the resources, providing network infrastructure to help these athletes compete even in the international stage. In fact, I think during the last SEA Games, I think the SEA Games was the first time that we had a medal event in a major international tournament. And the Philippines won 5 medals, 3 gold, and 1 silver and 1 bronze. The same vision for sports is also our same vision for esports, in that we don't want just the players to be on a pedestal, to be elevated, to compete in the world stage, but we also want the Philippines to be a venue for these major tournaments. Pupuntahan ng Pilipinas, right? If in the basketball we are the sponsor of the FIBA World Cup, we want to do the same for esports, and sometime in the future, hopefully, we become destination for esports players. And I think philosophically is this, why we want to do this is that the future that we see now is that we see the digital and the physical are more and more connected, right? With the pandemic accelerating digitization and everyone's becoming, connected anywhere. Even my lolo at lola are connected now, diba? And the kids, especially now, it's intrinsic to them. It's no longer a separate idea that the digital and physical are connected. So it's important for us at Smart to improve the lives of Filipinos, and we focus on the digital aspect because that's where we can help the most, right? And as we improve the digital lives of Filipinos, we also improve Filipinos in general. And we see esports as a very symbol of that, because as we improve the network, we improve the chances of our esports teams to rise up and compete on the world stage. Right? Thank you. I think that's my short introduction to what we do on the esports level.
Thank you very much, Lloyd. I think that's a fantastic comparison to draw between the values, the heroes, the ecosystems of games like Mobile Legends, and something as inherently Pinoy as basketball. It's an ecosystem of not only players, but content creators, consumers, and viewers. It's the same kind of communities we see cropping up around traditional sports. So to dive deeper into just how fitting that comparison is, let's call on our next speaker, Darren Paul Vitug. Ren began his decade-long career in esports as a passion-driven journalist covering gaming events. After transitioning through a variety of back-end roles across gaming projects, Ren served as the head technical official for the esports competition in the 2019 Southeast Asian Games. He currently serves as the commissioner of local esports league, the Nationals, as well as the ethics committee head of the Philippine Esports Organization. Ren, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Thiago, for that introduction. It's quite a ride, basically, from when I started up to now. I have been blessed and fortunate to have been in this industry for more than a decade. As I've said, diba, it started as a passion-fueled project, passion activity for the most part, and for the most part, it still is actually, but I am happy to have seen the evolution of esports and gaming in the world and in the country to be what it is today. But I think what I'm really excited about is, despite how big we seemingly have become, I can see that there is so much more room for growth. The mindset for gaming has been very progressive. I think it's a battle that we continuously have to fight, have to grind, but I'm sure we'll get there. Personally, I have made a lot of missteps in my life and in my career in regards to gaming. This is something I think not everyone has to experience to learn. So my vision is to be able to help guide, teach, and mentor younger people in regards to, for a lack of a better word, their relationship with gaming. I think doing that can be done directly by reaching out to them. I think doing that can also be done indirectly by reaching out to people who can reach out to them, which is why I'm honored and thankful to Business World and Smart for this opportunity to do that.
Well, thank you very much, Ren. I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into that paradigm shift, that progressive mindset around gaming a bit later during the Q&A. But before that, I'd like to introduce our third panelist today. Rounding out today's group is Irimark Trike Gutierrez. Having first made a name for himself as a pro gamer and pioneering Dota shoutcaster, Trike Gutierrez is a 10-year veteran of the esports industry. Along with Alodia Gosengfiao and Brian Lim, Trike is the charismatic co-founder of Tier 1 Entertainment, Southeast Asia's top-tier esports and gaming entertainment company. With a roster of over 800 talents, boasting some of the biggest digital influencers in the region, Tier 1's mission is to change the perception of gamers and gaming culture in mainstream media. Trike, thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me this morning. So for me, let me share some slides about Tier 1 first. So just for those who don't know about what we do in the company. There you go. So I think for Tier 1, this story really started back in 2017 when we first wanted to create a home for gamers like us that really didn't know where to start and what to do. Fortunately for us, Alodia has been in the industry for so long, and it's just so nostalgic to see when Lloyd was presenting earlier, where I saw the GameX brand, because she was one of the brand ambassadors for that brand. I was part of that as well, and I think esports has really gotten so far from that point. But I think for Tier 1 story, we were just in a way we had a very good timing with things. When we started this in 2017, we didn't see that a lot of opportunities would really come in the next years after 2017. So from there, we really developed into a totally different company 4 years after. So the whole idea back then in 2017 was just to be able to create an infrastructure around gaming creators by basically having Alodia as a blueprint, and then from there, replicate and create more Alodias of the future. That was kind of like the plan back in 2017. But today, basically, we are already at the intersection of the talent management space, reality shows, and esports teams. So, like what you mentioned, we now have actually 1,000 plus talents in our roster. We have reality shows that we produced already, and then an esports team called Blacklist International. So for Tier 1, we're really presenting esports and gaming in a different way compared to everybody else, where we want to present them as the celebrities and the modern celebrities of this generation. Because I remember back in 2010, 2012, gamers were presented as the people who are just playing games all day, wearing slippers and whatnot. So we wanted to change that perception by presenting them with a different look and aesthetic of how gamers look like today. Because with the development of mobile gaming, gamers are not just playing in PCs and consoles. And as gaming becomes more and more of a lifestyle in this pandemic, I think we need to be able to change that through the right presentation and by showing them the day-to-day lifestyle of talents as well. So furthermore, in terms of like the combined following of our talents, we have 107 million combined following on Facebook, 10.9 million on Instagram, 22.8 million on YouTube. And some of our top 100 streamers get this much numbers in terms of their day-to-day live streams. Outside of that, for our Blacklist International, which we're very proud of, we have teams in Mobile Legends, PUBG Mobile, Call of Duty Mobile, and Free Fire in Malaysia, where our Mobile Legends team is currently ranked number 1 in the MPL and is also the number 1 ranked team globally. For Blacklist International, as a proof of our machinery that we've created through the creator that who we manage, basically, for the first half of the Facebook engagements of 2021 among multiple esports teams, we were ranked number 1 with 5.1 million in engagement. So I think that just goes to show that mobile gaming is really has a bright future, and hopefully in the years to come it grows bigger and bigger. For Tier 1 Entertainment, we are unique in a way where we have the Tier 1 talents, which we call basically representing the entertainment space of gaming and esports, because not a lot of people want to compete anymore. Some people just want to watch games. Some people just want to entertain people. So basically, that's the side of the business. That's the entertainment side. And then on the right side, that's Blacklist International, where we want to be able to create a winning team and a winning culture around different games for esports. So all of that falls under the One Fam brand in Tier 1 Entertainment. And we also have different products around those type of talents. For Tier 1 supply chain of talents, we understand that not a lot of people are your Kong TVs already, or your Alode Goshing Fiao, or your Bianca Yao, and all of the other top talents out there. So we have created multiple incubator programs such as Ardent, Amplify, and Ascend, so that people who want to start from zero can just come into our programs and basically learn the in and out of how the industry runs and develops, and how you want to be able to kind of like create a direction around your career. Outside of that, we have also supported the endeavor of Lyceum of the Philippines in BS Esports, which we're launching this semester, and we're very excited about that as well. Last but not the least, the Gaming House is one endeavor that we did this year, which is the first reality show around Tier 1 talents, where we basically created and shared the process of how we look for Tier 1 talents and put that into a 20-episode show with ABS-CBN. So for this IP, we were able to get 1,000 plus auditionees and shortlisted them into 25. And then now with the 10 talents that we have, we will put them in one content house where they will stay there for the next 3 months, in which there will be a round of eliminations. And then eventually one winner will come out as the next Tier 1 talent. So that's kind of like the approach that we have for Tier 1 Entertainment. And we wouldn't be able to do this if we didn't have the hardware to the software that we have. Currently, we have 120 people working in the company. We're present in 5 countries, and because of that, we just finished our HQ, which we call the Tier 1 and Esports and Gaming Facility, which is around 1,300 square of space that has 6 studios, 1 multi-purpose room, 1 white room, and esports bootcamps of Blacklist. So this is what it looks like. We also have a store in place in the front, and we want to be able to tap into the multiple e-commerce platforms down the line once we start selling products for talents and the other IPs that we have. So currently, Tier 1 covers 693 million in online population with 213 million gamers around the same time zone. And basically, we want we have the aspiration to become a global brand someday with Japan as a springboard, and hopefully, us esports and gaming develops in the years to come, we get to do that by getting more people believing in our movement. Yeah, that's about it for me.
Thank you, Trike. If you spend any amount of time on Twitch, on Facebook Gaming, even on YouTube, it's clear that some of the biggest online personalities today are gamers. Amazing to see how you've not only identified but also captured that massive opportunity with the infrastructure that you built at Tier 1, leading the current charge, incubating the future. Now, if we can have all our speakers on screen with me. Hello again, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'll be directing some questions to specific panelists. But if anyone has a comment or addition that they'd like to add, please feel free to chime in. We can keep this conversation free flowing. So I'd like to kick off today's Q&A with a question for both Ren and Trike, actually. So we've made great strides in recent years around breaking the stigma that gaming is this unproductive hobby. Like Ren said, it's a progressive culture today. There are dozens of lucrative careers one can carve out in this space. So maybe you can start with Trike. From your experience helping drive that paradigm shift, could you explain how the mainstream perception of gaming has evolved over the years?
I think there are a lot of factors of why that happened, and I think the first reason is really because of mobile gaming. I mean, from PC to mobile, in general, like looking at the stats, 53% of the gaming market in the world right now are playing mobile, and obviously the access to entry compared to a PC. Buying a PC versus getting a mobile phone is totally different, and because of that, we have really grown exponentially because there's a new platform that just came in. And furthermore, I think being able to present gaming in a different way through streaming is also a big development. Like when we all started this back in 2018, I remember we just had like 25 streamers under management, and today, looking at our roster now with like 1,000 streamers, that just up to this day really shocks me of how much we've grown because of that development. Because this has the streaming has been a widely, it was a big freelancer environment, but I think with Tier 1 they were able to do it sometimes with freelance, but with an agency like us, they were really guided in a way on how to maneuver themselves into the space, and they became ambassadors of gaming and esports through the years. So mobile gaming, second are streamers, and then third it's really mobile esports. You look at Mobile Legends today, and I remember casting a lot of Dota 2 games back then. The most that we've had was like around 25,000 concurrent viewers, and that was Dota 1 and Dota 2. We had like 30,000 concurrent viewers for Philippine viewership. But today, like with Mobile Legends, our team competes when our team competes against NXP, for instance. 260,000 people are watching online, and I think that alone shows how much the audiences have grown, and really how the industry have grown. So that's my take on the matter.
Yeah, Ren, you began your career covering this industry, so I'm curious, how have you seen it evolve over the past few years?
Well, for the stigma, I think an important note here is a lot of times when people say that gaming is an unproductive hobby, they're actually referring to gaming addiction and not gaming per se. And obviously, addiction and hobby are quite polar opposites, or at least they should be. But if people do think that gaming by itself is an unproductive hobby, I would say that it's just because, in general, that is how we find things that we are not familiar with. We have to understand that productivity in a hobby is not absolute. And since a hobby is something that you do to relax, to decompress, and to enjoy, it's not really fair for anyone to say in behalf of someone that their hobby is unproductive. So how has it changed in recent times? I think the stigma is still there, but it's seriously being challenged. We have more and more people understanding gaming. I think part of that is just the population growing up. We have, I think before, because if you have gamers, you're looking at very young people. But now, if you describe gamers, you're gonna see people in their 30s, in their 40s, and even older, in multiple instances. So I think that's a big part in the change. And I think because we have more people understanding gaming, we are becoming better because of that, and primarily because we are just learning how to deal with it better, especially when it's involved with other people.
Absolutely. Lloyd, did you have anything you wanted to add in that end?
Well, as I think Ren succinctly answered that, right? But just our thoughts lang is as a parent, we have to deal with this, right? And at the end of the day, I think we also have to be moderate, diba? With regards to how we play and how we use the internet as a whole. And it's important that, while the technology is available, the wisdom to how to use the technology is also up to the person to cultivate so that he does not get into an addiction, right? Ganun lang naman to eh. If you play right, if you play at the right time, it will make sense, right? And at the same time, that's why it's important. That's why we have a team, and our team are professionals, and we expect them to be to be to conduct themselves as if they are professionals. And our teams are have been asked to attend seminars similar to our basketball players as well, so that they represent the company properly.
Lloyd, just a quick follow-up, actually. You touched on this a bit in your opening remarks, but zooming in now to the past 2 years or so, how has esports and online gaming developed in the Philippines through the ongoing pandemic?
All right, I think that's been massive, right? I think streaming has had a huge effect, especially now with the pandemic and people are basically at home, right? And when you look at the streaming figures now for esports, I think Mobile Legends, Pro Gaming League in particular, I think we're seeing concurrent viewership of over 500,000. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that was unheard of. Now, that's actually quite common. I've seen these numbers over the past two seasons already. And the thing with the pandemic essentially accelerated this digitization, right? In effect, people are more digital. I think 2 out of 3 Filipinos now are actually spending using digital means, right? And it's only going to get bigger because I think philosophically what's going to happen now is that this hybrid lifestyle of the physical and digital are going to be more and more intertwined, and this will have a profound effect on sports. I think 5 years ago you wouldn't even think of esports, right? And I remember old conversations with Roro, who's not here. We had this vision of to turn this from a niche activity into something in the mainstream, and now it's actually mainstream. And if we look further forward, with the advent of even better network technologies, I think 5G is now on the horizon. You're going to be seeing new ways of playing, new ways of engaging in this environment, right? And we're seeing this as well, even in the entertainment industry. I think Netflix is already investing into games as well, and that tells you where the future for entertainment would be. I think esports and mobile and video games will be intertwined into this future wherein it's not just one way entertainment; it's actually two way, and you are able to engage. And even I think Facebook is going into this type of mindset. I think they changed their CTO quite recently because of this future, right? And they have Oculus and going into AR VR. So that's kind of where the technology is headed, and this technology will open up more and more, I guess, possibilities. And it's up to us to think what we can do with these technologies, and obviously esports will evolve along with the technology.
Yeah, Trike, Ren, have you guys noticed any other factors contributing to the development of gaming through the pandemic?
For me, I think Lloyd was really on point on everything that he said, because ano rin like for me, what one thing that really parang is developing a lot right now is decentralization, because of, for instance, when it comes to the streaming space, super hirap mag-produce ng maraming shows, right? Like if you look at the logistical challenges, like when we created our reality show, I never imagined how hard it will be when we up until we did it. The amount of testings and everything, like that takes a lot of money, resources, and a lot of time just to be able to do it. And with streaming as a new form of entertainment, imagine a full production team can technically be beaten in terms of viewership by one Alode Gosheng Fea, who is technically just streaming from her house. So, the practicality of being able to produce that level of content is just so much, it's just like, to me, like mind boggling. It will affect a lot of, the economics of everything when you think about, creating any type of entertaining content in a way. That's for one. And I think for the second point, with sports close to non-existent, with all the lockdowns and a lot of things that are happening, with schools not being run right now in actual schools, all of these things are affecting how we behave as people. And I truly believe that after just 1 year and a half of everything we've gone throughout this pandemic, there's no way that there's not going to be a certain change in behavior or a certain residue, even if we go back to the new normal one day. Because 1 year and a half is a long time. And a lot of people have really changed, and behaviors have changed in the past 1.5 year, which I feel will stick as we move on in our lives after this.
Yeah, I think one thing that has happened and is quite interesting, diba? The play to earn model came out, right?
Yes.
Axie Infinity. So that's actually I think the progeny of this pandemic, right? I think 2 or 3 years ago this was not possible, with crypto being understood by the masses, and suddenly now you're seeing the masses understanding crypto. It's an interesting development, and I think the Philippines is interesting because we're probably at the forefront of that one, as we discussed earlier before the start of the show, right? So those things are changing, and what's interesting, we didn't expect them, right? But I think the fundamental thing that has happened with with the pandemic and the availability of digital is that it accelerated this digitization of everyone, right? Not just Filipinos. And I think this one will continue. I don't think there's no turning back, as Strike mentioned. These are fundamental paradigm shifts. And even if, I guess, maybe a year and hopefully down the road, people are more vaccinated, we open up again, we will still be we are fundamentally have been changed by this experience, right? And that we are more digital, more connected. But I think what will happen next is parang we'll create this hybrid from this platform na the real and digital is just one big connected reality now.
Yeah. Ren, if you don't mind, let me flip this question a bit for you. So as mentioned, the decentralization of content creation, buy-in from entertainment incumbents, these massive audiences, hybrid lifestyles, these all sound like the right ingredients for even more growth in gaming. No? But generally speaking, though, are there any prominent obstacles that you see hindering the industry's growth?
Well, I think there's nothing that stands out as being unique into the industry, right? I would say that the age of the industry, the age of esports, is both its strength and its weakness. While we have exuberant youth that gives a lot of energy, it gives a lot of passion and enthusiasm. But on the other hand, I see that a lot of these energies and passion and enthusiasm, the same things, are not being channeled properly. Sometimes it's because there's a lack of guidance. Sometimes there's a lack of opportunity. Sometimes it's just the lack of knowing what to do, because for the most part, we're still trailblazing a field that is basically still in the Wild West days. Pero I think all being said, as much as cliche as it's only a matter of time is, I think it makes so much sense for gaming. I think we have been building the right foundation, and some of them through painful trial and error, but I think we will get there.
Very insightful point. Try Lloyd. Do you have anything to add there?
No, I think Mr. Ren Vito already covered that subject completely.
Fantastic. Now, so specifically in esports now, we see no shortage of promising young talents all across the country. It isn't unheard of that many of these talents are teenagers. No? As Ren pointed out, the exuberance of youth, no? And some of these may be minors as well. In your experience leading this sector, have you encountered any potential situations of exploitation? I'd like to know what regulatory protections are in place to ensure the safety of these young talents, whether they be athletes or streamers.
Okay, I'm gonna speak in behalf of the league, right? In the nationals. For us, we are allowing everyone 15 and up, assuming they have a parental or guardian consent if they are a minor. And this is in line with the minimum age of the Games and Amusement Board for professional athletes. Personally, I don't think it's weird. Potential is a very determining factor. As I've said kanina, it's something experienced by all other industries, and esports is not an exception here. It's the norm, and it's actually very deeply rooted in sports as well, uh, wherein kids are being recruited for commercial purposes in the guise of maybe athletic scholarships and whatnot. But it's not really new that kids are being tapped as athletes based on their potential. If anything, we are probably somewhat better off because there are minimal chance of physical risk involved in playing competitively. But that being said, you're right, Tiago. There might be some expectation present, so it's very important to guide the kids and make sure we are leading them towards their best interests and not necessarily someone else's.
Trek, from your perspective on the content creator, on the talent, the streamer side of the industry, do you see any similar potential situations?
On our end, no, because we don't actually take in talents who are younger than 18 years old because of a lot of challenges, logistically and legally. And that's why we don't do that. However, we understand the responsibility that we have in terms of influencing the younger generation. And that's why for tier one, we always try to do our best to be able to become, a positive influence to the younger generation, from the way Blacklist manages a lot of things in the Mobile Legends space, with Kong TV's mindset in YouTube and everything else, and Team Payaman's, mindset of helping each other out. I think, those are the things that we're kind of like doing as much as we can in order to influence the youth for the better. And then I think outside of that, just being able to create academic frameworks such as Amplify Academy, which we're doing right now, and also for BS Esports, which is a 4-year course for esports, like what I mentioned, are some things we've prepared for the younger generation to go through, to prepare them for this space. Because a lot of people have really argued against me about the 4-year course in esports, because they were saying that it wasn't really necessary. But for me, like, I'm here in tier one, and I see that there's a lack of people who understand the space. And if the academe has that 4-year course, it will really change a lot in terms of perception and preparing the younger generation to understand the in and outs of this industry without needing to make mistakes as they go into the workspace and not understanding how this works. So that's kind of like some of the things that we're doing in order to help the youth. But I mean, exploitation will probably be here and there, because we're a young industry, like what Ren mentioned. And I think we just need to be able to audit ourselves and to be able to audit the communities around us, and really create a better future for the next gen.
I think it's a fantastic point. Speaking of the responsibility that comes with influence, Ren and Lloyd, you both mentioned addiction earlier as another concern surrounding gaming, something that may not exist in other sports, at least not in the same way. Could you expound on that a bit? How can the esports and online gaming industries support responsible play?
I think personally, gaming addiction is an actual legitimate problem. I'm not shying away from it. I don't mind it being highlighted. And in fact, I want it to be highlighted to an extent, as long as people are not confused gaming with gaming addiction. And I think that's my issue with a lot of talks around this topic. Because when people bring out the negatives of gaming, especially from those who are not familiar, most of the time, gaming per se is actually not the problem. Gaming addiction is, right? And I think that's an important roadblock that we have to clear, because to deal with gaming better, we have to understand it better. We have to accept the fact that kids today are digitally native, and a lot of things from before are not applicable today. I think for example, one of my teachers when I was young, I think we can all relate that one of the things that they were persistently saying is, you should learn how to do math with your head because you don't always have a calculator in your hand. Well, right now I do, and most people do. And in the same way, the kids will always have access to video games nowadays. You cannot stop that anymore. Di ba? Hindi mo na pwedeng itago yung controller, yung adapter, yung CD as what was being done before. And I think we also have to accept the fact that gaming is pretty much a very social aspect for many kids. Uh, I think we were talking about paradigm shifts kanina. One of them is if before gaming is reserved for the nerds and for the minority, I think that has flipped na at this age na yung hindi na naglalaro ng games, they are the minority na in this time. You have kids as young as 4 or 5, even younger, starting playing with Minecraft and Roblox. Kung may mga pamangkin kayo, may mga anak kayo, you have probably experienced that, and then this evolved to other games as they go. So I think educating them and even the parents themselves knowing how to deal with it is very, very important. For Peso as the organization, we are looking at campaigns, but this is a collective effort by everyone with the strong emphasis on the parents and the teachers, because these are the people in position to really influence these young kids. So it's really important that we make the kids understand that gaming is a healthy hobby, but there's a lot of ways that they can go about it in an unhealthy way. And I think that's the first part in changing this and in fixing this problem of gaming addiction.
Okay. From our end, I think there are two points of not two points of views. I think two paradigms, right? First, as a corporate, and from the corporate point of view, and as a team owner, right? So I think one of the things that we can do is look at esports and look at the values that it spouses. It's quite, as I mentioned earlier, it's quite similar to sports. You foster ideas of teamwork, camaraderie, creation of strategies, right? Because you can't just mindlessly play the game. And with our players, and because I know we had to go through certain instances with the new team that we brought in, we had to inculcate these values that we already espouse with our I know with our basket with our sports teams. Because ultimately these are professionals, and as a professional, you have to you have to be a hero, right? By default, because people will look up to you. You have the media looking at you. You get attention, right? And these players will have a I guess status, and therefore they need to set a good example. Essentially, conduct becoming of a professional athlete. And when they do that, they espouse the professional values. They show success. The children and the kids can follow them and look at them as role models, right? And it's the same way we need to look at the same way we look at the NBA athletes. It's no different from that. Dapat ganun din sila. Now, as a parent naman, because I have 2 kids, and personally, I grew up at the onset of this, right? When I was growing up, Famicom. I look young, but I'm actually 44, right? So, yun ang panahon ko. Parang parang we my generation, we've grown up with video games and playing with video games. So unlike the older generation who've never been exposed to it, our generation kind of had the origins of this behavior, right? And now as a parent, I watch my kids. You talk to your child psychologist, etc. They will say, everything needs to be in moderation, even for example screen time, and it's not just for games. Screen time for watching videos, watching for right? And there's a right balance to it. And as a parent, you know what that right balance is. So as long as they're studying, as long as they're not as long as they're still doing well in school, and which is a challenge now because of the study from home environment, they can have that time to play games for for relaxation, for entertainment, right? And it's that same principle. At the end of the day, you need to strike a balance between the physical and the digital, and that's done through that you get that through wisdom, diba? Alam mo na pag sumusobra you don't even have to say 2 hours, 3 hours. You kind of know when they're going overboard already and not practicing proper behavior already at school, right? Eh mahuli mo yan eh. Pag nahuli mo na, papagalitan mo and you tell them sumosobra na. And it's the same thing as a parent. I think we will have to be dealing with that with this reality in the future. uh and it's the same thing with anything in life, right? We have to figure out what's the right moderate consumption of games, of food, and so on and so forth. And the nice
Absolutely.
thing and the powerful thing is it's an evolving world. So there is no hard and fast rule now that could change in months, right? Ganun kabilis yan eh.
Absolutely. I think the first console I ever played on was the Sega Genesis. So it's nice to see we have generations of gamers represented here in the in the panel.
Umabot ako sa Atari, dude.
so
Pac-Man.
so that really reinforces the importance of building up role models now, and also building that infrastructure around play, both in school, as what Trike mentioned, and at home. We have a question actually for Trike from the audience. Tier 1's built an amazingly talented and passionate community of fans. Trike, could you share any tips on how brands can accomplish the same thing, can build those types of communities?
Siguro no. I think some of the one big realization that I had back in 2017, and the reason why we created Tier 1 Entertainment is because I realized that people don't follow words, people don't follow ideologies, people follow people. 'Di ba? Like if I've been saying the same thing. Sa totoo lang, since 2010. Like I wanted to create better opportunities for esports and gaming. Yun naman yung sinasabi ko even before, 'di ba? But when you have someone like Kong, Alodia, Wrecker, all of these big talents talking about it, it just has a different impact because they resonate to people differently than I do. 'Di ba? So for me, yun talaga yun eh, na parang you need to find allies that will help kind of like, share your thoughts and your beliefs and your movement, and that will parang naturally embed into the communities that follow them. And that's the true localization that we have in Tier 1. That's why I think meron kaming ganung level ng fan base because, if Tier 1 wants to say, for example, ito yung pinapaniwalaan namin, we believe that esports is the future. And then kung TV echoes that in his YouTube channel, in-echo to ni Alodia sa live stream niya, in-echo sa TikTok ni Christine Samson, and then kumalat sa iba't ibang mga kanya-kanyang mga channels. And then you get to localize the message, and the profile of that message matters because people follow people. And I think yun yung parang fundamental approach namin in building communities, and we will continuously do that because here authenticity kasi is everything.
People follow people. It's a really great insight. Before we close today's session, as we are approaching the end of the session, I'd love to circle back yet again to our conversation that we were having backstage and earlier in the session. So just adjacent to esports and online gaming is this recent rise in NFT games, blockchain gaming, which is helping drive massive growth in mobile gaming. While we're only just beginning to measure the effects of this new play-to-earn model, we know that at the very least, the Filipinos are leading this new evolution in gaming. Right? Filipinos are front and center when it comes to the future of games, at least in this regard. This is, I suppose, a great way to close out the session, but I just want to ask each of our panelists now, how do you all see the Philippine gaming scene developing over the next few years? What major factors or developments do you see shaping its future? Maybe we can start with Trike.
For me, esports and gaming are technically parang a big part of Philippines' future. Not just talking about the digital space, but talking about the whole economic parang makeup of the Philippines. Because with Axie Infinity's rise, and the P2E model, sobrang dami ng kumikita from this whole development with crypto and everything. And I think that just really unlocked the future for both crypto and gaming together. And a lot of companies who are into the P2E models are looking at the Philippines kasi tayo naging springboard for the rise of Axie. So naniniwala talaga ako na crypto and gaming together is the future of digital gaming. Feeling ko that's gonna be a big part of the future. For esports end naman, we've seen a lot of Filipinos win in this space. However, parang naniniwala rin ako na, I don't know, like, there are still a lot of challenges na meron tayo, like social acceptance, human capital, 60-40 rule in terms of foreign ownership, the lack of support in terms of proper legal frameworks to support the rise of esports and gaming. And that's the reason why we registered in Singapore for our holdings for our Asian expansion. And I think that's the frustrating part, diba? Na parang we've done it with the call center industry. We've done it with Pogos. And yet esports is something that we have really overlooked as a country, for me. Pero I mean ano naman like I want to channel my frustration into just building for the future instead of just complaining. But for me, like, we need to really turn heads in terms of how other stakeholders and how powerful people in the different spaces that they are in na ma-prepare tayo dito. Kasi ito lang yung masabi ko, like, we already missed out on the industrial revolution. We missed out on a lot of, like, revolutionary stuff that happened in the world. And nandito tayo ngayon in the middle of the biggest digital revolution of our era. And the Philippines is at the center of it in the P2E space. Esports, malaking parte rin tayo nito. In Dota 2, for instance, number 2 tayo with the most players. And I think if we miss out on this, ewan ko na lang. Yun na lang yung masasabi ko.
Yeah, I think for me naman, the same way that Manny Pacquiao inspired a generation of boxers who are now medalists in the Olympics, the same way Hidilyn Diaz will inspire a lot of female athletes for years to come. I think that is the same way with a lot of our esports athletes as they inspire a new generation. For once, kasi we are not limited by our physical traits. For once, we are not behind years and decades of development in a sport. We are excelling in a time wherein I would say the support is not really there yet, or at least it can still be so much better. I think I can see Philippine esports having the chance to be a breeding ground of champions, a breeding ground of excellence, and I think that will play a key factor as we continue to expound on the interests of gaming in general. Because the pro player side is just one aspect of it, right? There's a whole industry surrounding it, and all of this potential waiting to be tapped, all of this talent that we have in our country that we can utilize. And I think all of this is not even adding the recent surge of the blockchain games, which raised Tiago, which is another topic altogether. But I think that in complement to the other ones will serve as more future opportunities across the board. So I'm just very excited for what the future will bring us in esports and gaming.
Lloyd, you have the last word.
Right. Quick lang. I guess from a philosophical standpoint, right? I think there's a nice change. There's a nice term, diba? Wait, 5 years ago, or let's say 6-7 years ago, we were at the cusp of revolution, and that's with 4G, LTE, and mobile games, right? Suddenly, nawala na from the PCs now into the mobile games, and you've got more and more Filipinos playing esports because it's more accessible. It's mobile. We're now at the cusp of another revolution because now 5G is available and it's going to get more widespread. More and more that the country is getting fiberized. From before less than 20% penetration, now we're going to be hitting probably 40-50%, right? And it's not just wireless; you're going to get fiber connections. With 5G and fiber, it changes the ball game on how you're going to be connecting to the internet. Hindi na mabagal eh. We're now at the speeds that are enjoyed by other countries. And actually, I think right now, more and more, we look at other countries as the benchmarks for these. And that will spur more changes. And as with the pandemic, it's kind of it's not just evolution out. Suddenly there's a big shift, right? Paradigm shift. And cultures are changing. I think we are becoming more digital and physical hybrids, right? And esports will be a reflection of that one, right? Because esports is the sport, it's a reflection of what's happening on the cultural side. If the past 5 years was about mobile, imagine what the next 5 years will be like, when everybody is connected at massive speeds, when everything's fiber-like. And that's where I think esports is going to be interesting. It might just change how we play. Yun ang crystal ball natin.
I think that's a great place to end today's session, painting a bright future ahead for esports and gaming with Filipinos like yourselves leading the way. So thank you again, Lloyd Manaloto, Ren Vitog, and Try Gutierrez. Thank you so much for joining. Such a pleasure having you in today's session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to Smart Communications for making this session possible, to our supporting partners, the British Chamber of Commerce Philippines, Investa, the Management Association of the Philippines, and the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry. A huge thank you to the Philippine Star, our media partner, to Business World, as always, for having me on today's wonderful discussion. Be sure to give Business World a follow online for updates on upcoming discussions and new projects. And of course, to everyone watching, wherever in the world you're watching from, my name is Tiago Arnaiz. Maraming salamat. Thank you very much. And we'll see you in the next session of Business World Insights. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Dude, nagawa mo na ba yung research para sa assignment?
Oo, sa YouTube.
The kinematics of traditional...
According to quantum physics,
The gamma rays from them could sterilize...
Tutok na tutok ka dyan ah. Baka lumuha yung mga mata mo. Ano ba yan? Baka bumalok-baloktot mo tumukha ka ganyan. Huy! Baka magbuhol-buhol na yung daliri mo, kaka-cellphone. Kakain na! Ah!
Unli alert! Unli alert! Introducing Smart's most unli! Sa sobrang unli ng Unli Giga Video, watch all you want on video apps. Sa sobrang unli ng Unli Giga Stories, post all you can on social media apps. Kakayanin mo ba?
saranghe.
Ma, buong araw ka na po nanonood dyan ah. Baka kainin ka na ng sofa.
Unli alert! Unli alert! Smart Unli Giga Video and Smart Unli Giga Stories. Unli responsibly.
Ang gusto ko yung easy. Kaya good thing ang Smart may GigaPay sa GigaLife app. It's the smarter way to pay dahil sa GigaPay with PayMaya, carry magbayad sa GigaLife app. Buy load, subscribe to promos, and be rewarded for it. Achieving your passions just got easier with a simpler and smarter way to pay. GigaPay with PayMaya. Only on the GigaLife app. How do I know this? Simple. Smart ako. Download the GigaLife app now.